The doors to the Grand Assembly opened like the jaws of some ancient beast. Ambassador James Rivers stood at the threshold, looking into a chamber so vast it seemed to have no ceiling. Circular tiers rose in every direction, each filled with beings that defied imagination. Crystalline entities that pulsed with inner light. Creatures that floated without bodies. Massive armored beings that could crush a human with one limb. Hundreds of species. Thousands of representatives. All of them staring down at the single human who dared to enter their domain. James took a breath and walked forward. His boots echoed on the polished floor, each step amplified by the chamber's acoustics. He reached the center platform, a circular space surrounded by a faint shimmer that he recognized as an energy barrier. Once he stepped inside, there would be no leaving until the council permitted it. He stepped inside anyway. The shimmer solidified into a visible wall of light. The murmur of alien voices fell silent. High above, in a position that dominated the entire chamber, a being of pure crystalline structure began to glow. Its thoughts manifested as colors that rippled through the air, translated by the neural implant behind James's ear into words. Human, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for crimes against the peaceful order of civilized space. The voice belonged to Arbiter Kylon, the supreme judge of the council. Your species has violated the expansion protocols. You have settled restricted territories. You have built military forces beyond permitted levels. You have refused to acknowledge council authority over your actions. James kept his expression neutral. He had rehearsed this moment for months. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. Honored Arbiter, with respect, humanity has broken no laws. We have settled only unclaimed systems, as is the right of any spacefaring species under the Charter of Sovereign Development. A ripple of shock moved through the assembly. Species did not speak back to the Arbiter. They listened. They apologized. They begged for mercy. Kylon's crystalline form flared bright red. You dare to quote council law to the council itself? I dare to expect the council to follow its own laws, James replied calmly. Or are those laws only meant to bind the weak? The chamber erupted. Alien languages crashed over each other in waves of outrage. Representatives stood from their seats. Some were shouting. Others made gestures that James's implant translated as threats. But he kept his eyes on Kylon, waiting for the Arbiter's response, the crystalline being dimmed to a cold blue. The Council will now vote on whether humanity represents an existential threat requiring immediate containment. The word hit James like a physical blow. Containment. The galaxy's polite term for extinction. They were going to vote on whether to wipe out humanity before Earth could grow strong enough to challenge them. I invoke Article 7, James said clearly, his voice cutting through the chaos. The right of evidence before existential determination. The chamber went silent. Kylon's light flickered through several colors before settling on a confused purple. That article has not been invoked in 12,000 years. It may no longer be valid. Then declare the Council Charter void, James challenged. Announce to the galaxy that your laws mean nothing. I'm sure the thousands of species bound by Council regulations would love to hear that. A long silence followed. James could feel his heart pounding but forced his body to remain still. This was the gamble. Either they honored their own laws or they revealed themselves as tyrants. Either way, Earth would know what it faced. 1 hour, Kylon finally said. You have 1 hour to present evidence that humanity is not a threat. If you fail, the vote proceeds immediately. Holographic displays materialized around James. He activated the first presentation, and data began flowing across the screens. But he did not start with defenses or apologies. Instead, he revealed something that made the entire council freeze. 3 months ago, Earth's intelligence services intercepted communications between council members. We discovered that this hearing is not about humanity's actions. It is about your civil war. The chamber exploded in denials and accusations. James raised his voice over the chaos. The council is fracturing. 3 major factions are positioning for conflict. The Sovereign Dominion, the Trade Collective, and the Unity Alliance are all building military forces in secret. They are forming alliances. They are preparing for war. And humanity's colonies sit directly in the middle of disputed territory. He brought up intercepted messages, trade records showing massive weapons purchases, and testimony from minor species who feared what was coming. This vote is not about containing humanity. It is about dividing our colonies among the factions before your war begins. Earth is not the threat. Earth is the prize you are fighting over. Representatives from all three major factions were shouting denials, but James noticed something crucial. They were not shouting at him. They were shouting at each other. Accusations flew across the chamber. Old grievances surfaced. The careful facade of council unity crumbled in real time, but James was not finished. However, I did not come here simply to expose your conspiracy. I came to offer a solution. He activated another display showing detailed proposals. Earth proposes the creation of neutral buffer zones. We propose independent arbitration of territorial disputes. We propose transparency requirements for military buildups. And we propose that humanity be given a seat on the council with full voting rights, so that we can help prevent the war you all know is coming. Impossible, a massive being named Vorath roared from the Dominion section. Your species has been in space for 70 years. We have governed the galaxy for millennia. You have no right to sit in judgment with us. Then you have no right to sit in judgment over us, James countered. Either we are equals under your laws, or your laws have no authority over us. Choose. Cullen's light pulsed rapidly, cycling through colors that James's implant could not translate. The arbiter was struggling to maintain control. This session is suspended. The council must deliberate on these accusations. How long? James asked. As long as necessary. Then I will wait right here. James sat down on the platform, crossed his legs, and looked up at the thousands of aliens surrounding him. I am not leaving this chamber until we reach an agreement. Neither is Earth. We have been patient with your politics. We have been respectful of your power. But we will not be victims of your war. Not now. Not ever. The energy barrier around him intensified, becoming a solid wall of light. James realized he was now truly trapped. The most powerful military forces in the galaxy surrounded him. One vote, and he would be dead. One command and Earth could face invasion, but he also knew that everything had changed in the last hour. The Council's dirty secret was exposed. The factions were revealed. And humanity had declared itself a player in galactic politics rather than a pawn to be moved by others. Now came the dangerous part. Now they had to survive what came next. The council chamber split into three distinct sections as representatives retreated to their factional groups. James remained sealed in his energy prison, watching the galaxy's most powerful beings argue about his fate. His neural implant buzzed with incoming messages from Earth, but the council's jamming field blocked all external communication. He was alone. Almost alone. A small group of aliens approached his barrier. They were representatives from minor species, the kind that had little power in the council but were bound by its decisions nonetheless. Their leader was a reptilian being with blue scales and intelligent eyes. The translator identified her as Delegate Vess from the Korean Assembly. She activated a portable privacy shield that created a bubble of interference around them. Ambassador Rivers, what you did was either the bravest or stupidest thing I have witnessed in 40 years of service. James stood to face her. Probably both. The major factions are furious. They will not forgive this exposure. You have made powerful enemies today. I made powerful enemies the moment Earth became relevant to their politics, James replied. At least now everyone knows it. Vess tilted her head in what might have been agreement or curiosity. Why did you really do this? You could have negotiated quietly, made deals with one faction against the others, ensured Earth safety through traditional diplomacy, and become a puppet? James shook his head. No, humanity has seen what happens when powerful groups fight secret wars while claiming to keep peace. We have our own history of empires and colonies and proxy conflicts. We know how this story ends for the small players caught in the middle. We refuse to play that role. So you chose to expose the entire system instead. I chose to change the game. Vess made a sound that the translator rendered as thoughtful humming. 17 minor species have been meeting in secret. We have been discussing the formation of an independent coalition outside council control. We call it the Alliance of Free Territories. We want humanity to join us. James felt his pulse quicken. This was more than he had hoped for. What would membership require? Mutual defense, technology sharing, economic cooperation, and most importantly, a united front against the major factions. Together we represent significant territory and resources. Enough to matter. Enough to demand reform. The factions will retaliate. They will try. That is why we need Earth. Your species has something none of us possess. You are genuinely unafraid of them. You walked into this chamber and challenged the council to its face. We need that courage. And we need whatever military capability you have been hiding. James considered carefully. This alliance could be Earth's salvation or its doom. I need authorization from my government. You have 2 hours. After that, the major factions will regain control of the narrative and crush this movement before it begins. Decide quickly, Ambassador. The privacy shield dropped and the group retreated. James activated his emergency beacon, a one-way signal that could punch through most jamming. He encoded a simple message to Earth, describing the alliance offer and waited for a response that might never come. Meanwhile, the council's deliberations grew heated. Through the transparent energy barrier, James watched representatives shouting at each other across the chamber tiers. Kulon was trying desperately to restore order, but failing. The careful balance of power that had maintained Galactic peace for centuries was breaking apart. Then James's implant buzzed with an incoming narrow beam transmission. It bypassed the council's jamming through a method James did not understand. The voice was Director Rachel Cole from Earth's Defense Command. Ambassador, we received your signal. The situation here is critical. Our long-range sensors detected multiple fleet movements heading toward council space. All 3 major factions are positioning military assets near Valorum Station. This could turn into a shooting war with you at the center. I know, James replied quietly. That is why we need to move fast. Did the government authorize the alliance? They did more than that. They authorized Protocol Nightfall. James felt his stomach drop. That is the full disclosure protocol. You are revealing Earth's real fleet strength? Not just revealing it, deploying it. 17 battle groups are entering jump space as we speak. They will arrive at your location in 13 hours. Until then, you need to survive. 17 battle groups. Director, that is more ships than the Council thinks we have in our entire Navy. I know. Time to show them what happens when you back humans into a corner. We do not surrender. We do not run. We bring everything we have and dare you to try us. The transmission ended. James looked up at the arguing aliens surrounding him and allowed himself a small smile. Earth was coming. Not to rescue him quietly through negotiation, but to announce humanity's presence with undeniable force. He just had to live long enough to see it. The deliberations continued for 6 more hours. James sat on his platform, projecting calm while his mind raced through scenarios. Finally, Kulon called the council back to order. The crystalline arbiter's light was dim, strained from the effort of maintaining any semblance of control. The council has reached a decision, Kulon announced. There will be no vote on humanity's containment. Relief flooded through James, but he kept his expression neutral. However, the council imposes a complete moratorium on human expansion for 10 standard years. You will settle no new worlds. You will build no additional vessels. You will maintain current military forces at present levels. Any violation will result in immediate military action by Council peacekeeping forces. James stood slowly. No, the chamber went silent. Kulon's light flared bright red. You refuse the Council's mercy? I refuse your chains, James replied clearly. Humanity will agree to negotiated limits determined by an independent arbiter. We will agree to mutual transparency on military forces matched by equal transparency from all council members. We will agree to formal treaties, but we will not agree to unilateral restrictions imposed by a council actively preparing for civil war. Vorath rose from his seat, his massive form radiating anger. You have no leverage, human. You are one man in a cage surrounded by the might of the galaxy, am I? James smiled. Tell me, Vorath, what are your sensors showing right now? Check the outer system. Check jump space. Confusion rippled through the chamber. Delegates activated their personal displays. The main view screens lit up with sensor data. And then the panic began. Multiple fleet signatures were emerging from jump space around Valorum Station. Not one fleet. Not two. 17 distinct battle groups, each containing dozens of vessels. Human vessels. Hundreds of ships that the Council did not know existed. Impossible, Colon whispered, the word translating as pure shock. Our intelligence report said Earth possessed 97 military ships total. Your intelligence saw what we wanted you to see, James replied. Did you really believe a species that achieved faster than light travel in 80 years would be honest about its military capacity? We are survivors, Arbiter. We plan for the worst and hope for the best. And we never, ever reveal our full strength until absolutely necessary? A transmission broadcasts through the chamber on all frequencies. Director Cole's voice filled the space. Galactic Council, this is Director Rachel Cole of Earth's Defense Command. We are here to extract our ambassador and to make one thing absolutely clear. Humanity will not be threatened. We will not be contained. We will not be divided among your factions like territory on a map. We are here. We are powerful. And we demand to be treated as equals. Any attempt to harm Ambassador Rivers or threaten Earth will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. The 17 battle groups took up positions in a perfect sphere around Valorum Station. Their weapons remained cold, but the implication was obvious. Earth could fight the entire council if necessary. James's containment barrier dropped. He walked calmly toward the exit, passing shocked alien delegates who could not believe what they were witnessing. As he reached the chamber doors, he turned back to face Kalon and the assembled council. I will return in 24 hours with Earth's formal proposal for peace and partnership. I suggest you use that time to decide whether you want humanity as an ally or an enemy. Because those are your only options now? The days of controlling us are over. He walked out of the Grand Assembly into a galaxy that would never be the same. The command deck of the Earth battleship Defiance hummed with controlled energy as James materialized in the transport bay. Director Cole stood waiting for him, surrounded by tactical displays showing the standoff outside Valorum Station. 17 human battle groups held position around the massive structure while council ships scrambled to respond. Welcome back, Ambassador, Cole said, her expression tight with tension. You caused quite a situation down there. That was the idea. James moved to the main display showing the distribution of forces. What is our tactical status? Standoff. The council factions are confused and arguing with each other. No one wants to be the first to fire on us because they do not know our full capabilities. But they are moving ships into position anyway. If shooting starts, it will be catastrophic for everyone. James studied the display. 3 distinct concentrations of council forces were forming, each representing one of the major factions. The Sovereign Dominion had the heaviest ships. The Trade Collective had the most advanced technology. The Unity Alliance had the largest numbers. Together they could overwhelm Earth's fleet through sheer mass, but the cost would be enormous. The Minor Species Coalition reached out, Cole continued. Delegate Vess and 23 other representatives want to meet with you aboard a neutral station. They are ready to formalize the Alliance of Free Territories if Earth commits to membership. We should do it, James said immediately. That alliance is our path forward. With the minor species united behind us, we have political legitimacy. We become more than just upstart humans making demands. We become the voice of hundreds of worlds that are tired of being pawns. The president agrees. But there is a complication. Cole activated a new display showing intercepted communications. The major factions are coordinating a response. They are calling it a joint peacekeeping action. Translation: they are going to unite long enough to crush both humanity and the Alliance movement, then go back to fighting each other. James felt cold. When? Best estimate is 48 hours. They need time to position forces and agree on command structure. That gives us 2 days to either back down or prepare for war. We are not backing down. Then we go to war against an enemy that outnumbers US 20-1 and has been fighting in space for thousands of years, while we have been doing it for 70. James turned to face Cole directly. Director, if we back down now, Earth becomes a vassal state. We will spend the next century living under restrictions while the major factions use our territory for their proxy wars. Our children will grow up in a galaxy where humanity is second class. I will not accept that. I would rather die fighting than live kneeling. Cole was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. I hoped you would say that. Because I already gave orders to proceed. The fleet is moving to defensive positions. We are transferring production data and military technology to the Alliance members. And we are preparing a diplomatic offensive that will make what you did in the council chamber look subtle. What kind of offensive? We are going to tell the galaxy the truth. All of it. Cole activated a holographic recording showing a prepared broadcast. This message will transmit simultaneously to every inhabited system in council space. It reveals the secret war preparations. It shows evidence of the major factions planning to divide Alliance territory. It exposes corruption in the council voting system. And it asks every species in the galaxy one simple question. Do you want to be ruled by fear or governed by consent? James watched the broadcast with growing admiration. It was brilliant. Dangerous but brilliant. This will cause chaos. It will cause revolution, Cole corrected. The minor species have been waiting for someone to stand up to the council. We are going to be that someone. And if the major factions attack us for it, they will prove every accusation we made. They might attack anyway. Then we make them regret it. Over the next 24 hours, James met with representatives from 46 minor species in a hastily organized conference aboard the neutral station Crossroads. The station was owned by an independent merchant guild and considered safe ground where even enemies could negotiate. Delegate Vess opened the meeting. We have all seen Earth's display of force. We have all heard Ambassador Rivers challenge the Council. Now we must decide if we are ready to follow humanity's example. This alliance will mean resistance. It will mean economic pressure. It may mean war. Are we prepared for that? Silence filled the chamber. Then a delegate from the anther species stood. They were a peaceful people, farmers and artists. My world has paid tribute to the sovereign dominion for 300 years. We have given them resources. We have given them labor. We have given them respect. And in return, they have given us orders and threats. I am tired of being afraid. The anther stand with Earth. One by one, other species rose to declare their support. Some were motivated by anger, others by hope. All of them were tired of being controlled by powers that saw them as resources instead of partners. By the end of the conference, the Alliance of Free Territories was official. 46 species committed to mutual defense and political unity. Earth was designated as the military coordinator. Given the responsibility of organizing collective defense. It was an enormous responsibility. It also made Earth a target. As James returned to the Defiance, alarms began sounding across the ship. The main display lit up with new contacts. Council forces were moving into attack positions earlier than expected. The standoff was ending. Cole appeared on the command deck, her face grim. The major factions announced a joint action to arrest you for crimes against Council authority. They are demanding we surrender you and withdraw our forces within 1 hour or they will open fire. So they united after all, James said quietly. Only because we scared them more than they hate each other. They realize that if our movement succeeds, they lose everything. So they are putting aside their war long enough to crush us. James looked at the tactical display. Earth's 17 battle groups were outnumbered by the combined Council forces, but they were positioned well, using Valorum Station's mass as cover and controlling the jump points. Do we have any advantages? James asked. 1. Our ships are faster. Our weapons have better range. And our crews actually want to win this fight instead of just following orders. But the Council has numbers and experience on their side. And then we use unconventional tactics. James activated a communication channel to all Earth vessels. All ships, this is Ambassador Rivers. In 60 minutes, the Council is going to attack us for daring to ask for equality. They believe we will run or surrender because we are new to the galaxy and afraid of their power. They are wrong about who we are. Humanity has faced extinction a dozen times in our history and survived every threat. Not because we were stronger, but because we were smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than anything trying to kill us. He paused, letting his words sink in. Today we show the galaxy what humans can do when we fight for something we believe in. We show them that fear is not enough to control us, that threats are not enough to break us, that no matter how powerful our enemies think they are, we will stand our ground and make them pay for every inch. All ships prepare for combat. Make them remember this day. Make them remember that Earth does not surrender. The fleet responded with acknowledgments. Weapons came online. Shields powered up. Crews moved to battle stations. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about humanity. When cornered, when threatened, when told they could not win, humans did not give up. They fought harder. The first shots came exactly 60 minutes later. A Dominion heavy cruiser fired on an Earth destroyer that was holding position near one of the jump points. The destroyer's shields flared as energy weapons hammered into them. Then the destroyer returned fire with missiles that moved faster than the Dominion ship expected. 3 direct hits. The cruiser's shields collapsed and its hull breached atmosphere. All ships engage, James ordered calmly. Target their command vessels first? The battle erupted across the entire sector. 17 Earth battle groups faced a combined Council force of more than 300 ships. The odds were terrible. The outcome should have been obvious. But humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment. Building weapons the Council did not expect. Training tactics the galaxy had never seen. Earth's ships moved like wolves among the Council formations. They were smaller and faster, striking from unexpected angles and retreating before the enemy could respond effectively. Human missiles had longer range and better targeting. Human point defense systems could track more incoming threats simultaneously. Human commanders were empowered to make decisions without waiting for orders from a central authority. The Council forces fought with overwhelming power but also with rigid coordination. Ships waited for commands that came too slowly. Factions hesitated to support each other fully. Ancient tactics met modern innovation, and the modern side was winning, but humans were still dying. The destroyer that took the first shots was crippled 30 minutes into the battle, its crew evacuating before the reactor breached. A frigate called the Manchester took a direct hit from a collective weapons platform and simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. 200 souls gone in a flash of light. James watched the tactical display with growing horror. They were holding their own, but barely. And the Council kept bringing in reinforcements while Earth had nothing more to commit. We cannot sustain this, Cole said quietly. We are losing ships faster than we can disable theirs. How long until the Alliance forces arrive? The minor species fleets are still 6 hours out. We will be destroyed long before then. James's mind raced. There had to be something they could do. Some advantage they had not yet used. Then he remembered a conversation with Earth's chief scientist weeks before the Council meeting. A prototype weapon that might work, or might kill everyone who tried to use it. The quantum disruption device, James said. Is it operational? Cole's eyes widened. Barely. We have only tested it twice in controlled conditions. The theory says it should create a localized field that interferes with jump drive calculations. But if the math is wrong, it could collapse into a singularity and destroy everything in this system, including us? Those are acceptable odds. James, I am serious. This could kill billions of people on Valorum Station. And if we lose this battle, the Council will kill billions more as they crush every species that stood with us. Deploy the device. If we are going to die anyway, let us at least try something that might save our allies. Cole hesitated, then gave the order. The Earth science vessel Nova detached from the main fleet and burned hard toward an optimal position. It was a small ship, unarmed and vulnerable, but it carried humanity's most experimental technology. Council ships noticed its movement and moved to intercept. All ships provide cover for the Nova, James commanded. She needs 3 minutes to deploy. The entire Earth fleet reoriented to protect one small vessel. Ships threw themselves into the path of incoming fire. Crews performed maneuvers that would have been suicide for any other navy. The Manchester's sister ship, the Liverpool, rammed a Dominion cruiser that was targeting the Nova, both vessels dying in the collision but buying precious seconds. The sacrifice worked. Nova reached position and began deploying the quantum disruption device. It was not a weapon exactly, more like a massive electromagnetic pulse combined with gravitational manipulation. The theory was that it would create interference patterns that made precise jump calculations impossible within its radius. The device activated. Space itself seemed to ripple as quantum fields collapsed and reformed. Every jump-capable ship within the effect zone saw their navigation systems go haywire. Ships that were preparing to jump into the battle found themselves unable to calculate safe routes. Reinforcements stopped arriving. The Council's numerical advantage was suddenly frozen, but the effect was not limited to Council ships. Earth's vessels lost jump capability too. Everyone was trapped in normal space, forced to fight with what they had already committed. Nova reports the device is stable, Cole said with relief. The field should last for 8 hours before it collapses, and the singularity risk was apparently overestimated. We are not all going to die today. Just some of us, James replied grimly. Watching another Earth ship take critical damage, the battle continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Without reinforcements, the Council forces had to rely on what was already present. And their coordination problems became worse as faction leaders argued about tactics without being able to bring in fresh forces to implement new strategies. Earth's fleet began targeting specific Council formations, breaking them apart with precision strikes. Human missiles found weak points in enemy shields. Human tactics exploited gaps in enemy coverage. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. Then something unexpected happened. Ships began appearing on the edge of the battlefield. Not Council ships. Not Earth ships. Ships from the Alliance of Free Territories. 46 different species had sent whatever military forces they possessed. Arriving early by pushing their jump drives beyond safe limits, they were not powerful ships. Many were converted merchant vessels or old patrol craft. But there were hundreds of them, and they threw themselves into the battle with desperate courage. Delegate Vess's voice came through on the general communication channel. Earth stands for the Alliance. Now the Alliance stands for Earth. We may not survive this day. But if we fall together as free people instead of living as slaves. The Alliance fleet crashed into the Council formations like a wave. They were outgunned and outmatched, but they fought anyway. And their arrival forced the Council to make a choice. Keep fighting and risk destroying the very species they claimed to govern, or accept that the galaxy had changed. The Sovereign Dominion made its choice first. Vorath's flagship broadcast a ceasefire order to all Dominion vessels. This battle is finished. We have made our point. We have barely begun to make ours, James replied on the open channel. You attacked us for asking to be equals. You tried to crush an alliance of species that wanted only to govern themselves. The galaxy is watching this battle. Every world, every colony, every species is seeing what happens when the powerful feel threatened by the free. You cannot win this fight, Vorath. Not with weapons, The Trade Collective and Unity Alliance followed the Dominion's lead. Weapons powered down across hundreds of ships. The battle ended not with a final strike, but with exhausted opponents drifting in the wreckage of their conflict. James slumped in his command chair as the adrenaline drained from his body. They had survived, barely. Earth lost 9 ships and thousands of crew. The Alliance lost dozens more. But they had survived. And they had proven that the Council could be fought, could be challenged, could be forced to compromise. What now? Cole asked quietly. Now we negotiate, James replied. While they still remember what it cost to fight us, the galaxy would never be the same. The Council's absolute authority was broken. The age of unchallenged power was ending. And humanity, the newest species to reach the stars, had just announced that it would bow to no one. The question was whether the galaxy would accept this new reality or try once more to restore the old order through force. James suspected they would find out very soon. 3 days after the battle, James stood in a very different council chamber. Not the grand assembly where he had been judged, but a smaller diplomatic room where real negotiations happened away from public spectacle. Across the table sat representatives from all 3 major factions, along with Arbiter Kylan and delegates from the Alliance of Free Territories. No one spoke for a long moment. The silence was heavy with anger, resentment, and grudging respect. Finally, Vorith broke the quiet. You cost us 237 ships, human. Thousands of crew members dead. Billions in military assets destroyed. And for what? To prove a point? To prove we are not your property, James replied evenly. To prove that might does not make right. To prove that the galaxy can be better than it has been. Better? The collective representative, a being named Tharn, made a sound like grinding metal. You have brought chaos and destruction. You have encouraged rebellion across dozens of systems. Minor species are refusing to honor treaties. Trade networks are collapsing. Pirates and raiders are exploiting the confusion. This is your better galaxy? Growing pains, James said. The old order was stable because it was enforced through fear and overwhelming power. That stability was purchased with the freedom of hundreds of species who had no voice in their own governance. Yes, replacing that system creates temporary chaos. But the alternative is a forever dictatorship that will eventually collapse into civil war anyway. We have simply accelerated the timeline and forced you to deal with the problem while diplomacy is still possible. Kulin's crystalline form pulsed with tired colors. What do you want, Ambassador Rivers? You have demonstrated your military capability. You have rallied minor species to your cause. You have exposed divisions in the Council. What is your endgame? James activated a holographic display showing a detailed proposal. Constitutional reform of the Galactic Council. Equal representation for all species regardless of size or power. Transparent voting on all major decisions. Independent arbitration for territorial disputes. Limits on the use of military force. And most importantly, recognition that sovereignty is a right, not a privilege granted by the powerful. You are asking us to surrender our authority, Tharn said flatly. I'm asking you to share authority with those you claim to govern. Is that not what legitimate government does? We earned our positions through thousands of years of leadership. You inherited positions established through conquest and intimidation. There is a difference. The negotiations continued for hours. The major factions resisted every proposal. They argued that change would take decades. They claimed that minor species lacked the sophistication for equal governance. They warned of disaster if the old order was disrupted too quickly, but they were also afraid. Earth had proven it could fight them to a standstill. The Alliance had proven that minor species could coordinate effective resistance. And most importantly, the battle had been broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings had watched humanity stand up to the Council and survive. The myth of invincible authority was shattered. Finally, Delegate Vess spoke up. Perhaps we are asking the wrong question. The question is not whether the Council should reform. The question is whether the Council should continue to exist at all. The major faction representatives reacted with shock. Kulin's light flared bright white. You dare suggest dissolving the Council? I suggest recognizing reality, Vess replied calmly. The Council governs through authority that is no longer recognized. If you refuse meaningful reform, then the Alliance of Free Territories will simply withdraw from Council jurisdiction entirely. We will form our own governing body. We will establish our own trade networks. We will defend ourselves collectively. And we will invite any species tired of Council rule to join us. That would split the galaxy in half, Vorath said, his voice low and dangerous. Yes, it would. So perhaps instead of fighting that inevitability, you should negotiate with us as equals, and find a path forward that preserves galactic unity while respecting our sovereignty. The threat hung in the air. The major factions could try to crush the Alliance through force, but the recent battle proved that would be costly and might not even succeed. Or they could compromise and maintain some influence over a reformed council rather than lose control entirely. James watched the aliens calculate their options. This was the moment. Either they accepted change or they guaranteed the very civil war they had been trying to avoid. Tharn spoke first. The trade collective could accept limited reforms, representation adjustments, voting transparency, arbitration systems, in exchange for the Alliance remaining within Council structure and recognizing Council authority on matters of galactic security. The Unity Alliance representative nodded slowly. We could support such a compromise. All eyes turned to Vorath. The Dominion had been the most aggressive in trying to contain humanity. They had the most to lose from reform. If Vorath refused, the entire negotiation would collapse. The massive alien was silent for a long time. Then, the Sovereign Dominion acknowledges that the galaxy has changed. We do not like these changes. We believe they will create problems that will take generations to solve. But we recognize that fighting change will only make those problems worse. We will accept constitutional reform of the Council structure with conditions that ensure stability and prevent chaos. James let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. Then let us begin drafting the new charter. The negotiations continued for 3 more days. They were difficult, contentious, and often seemed on the verge of collapse. But slowly, a new framework emerged. The Council would restructure into a bicameral system. The Upper Council would have equal representation from all member species regardless of size. The Lower Council would have proportional representation based on population and economic contribution. Both chambers would need to approve major decisions. Military forces would be limited for all species, with verification systems. Territorial disputes would go to independent arbitration. A Bill of Rights would guarantee sovereignty protections. And humanity would have a permanent seat on both councils, recognizing Earth's role in forcing these reforms. It was not perfect. The major factions retained significant influence. Many questions were left unresolved. But it was a beginning, a foundation for a galaxy governed by law rather than power on the final day of negotiations. As delegates prepared to present the new charter to their home governments, Vorath approached James privately. You maneuvered us skillfully, human. I am not certain whether to respect your cunning or resent your manipulation. James met the alien's gaze steadily. I simply refuse to accept that the strong should always dominate the weak. That is not manipulation. That is principle. Principles are expensive. You could have negotiated Earth's place within the old system, accepted client status under one of the factions, secured safety and prosperity for your species without risking war. Instead, you gambled everything for abstract ideals about equality and justice. Because those ideals are what make civilization worth having, James replied. Power without justice is tyranny. Prosperity without freedom is slavery. We did not come to the stars to trade one set of masters for another. We came to build something better. Vorath was silent for a moment. I hope you are right, Ambassador. I hope this new system you have forced upon us creates the better galaxy you believe is possible. Because if it fails, if these reforms lead to chaos and collapse, then billions will suffer for your idealism. Then we will work very hard to make sure it succeeds. That is what partnerships are for. 6 months later, James stood on a balcony at the new Alliance headquarters on a neutral world called Haven. The restructured council had held its first session the previous week. It had been chaotic and argumentative, but it had functioned. Decisions were made. Disputes were resolved. The galaxy continued. Director Cole joined him, looking out at the ships from dozens of species arriving and departing from the orbital stations above. "We got lucky," she said quietly. "If the battle had gone differently, if more ships had been lost, if the Alliance had broken under pressure, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity," James replied. "We prepared for decades. We gathered intelligence. We built capabilities. We waited for the right moment. When that moment came, we were ready. The major factions still do not trust us. No, but they respect us. That is enough for now. Trust will come later, or war will come. Perhaps. But if war comes, it will be fought by a galaxy where the weak have voices and allies, where bullies cannot act with impunity, where courage and principle matter as much as military might. That is worth fighting for." Cole nodded slowly. "Did you ever imagine this is where we would end up? When you first walked into that council chamber 6 months ago?" James thought about that moment. Standing alone before hundreds of hostile aliens, invoking an ancient law to buy time, gambling that Earth's hidden strength and the Alliance's courage would be enough to... They stood in silence, watching ships from across the galaxy.